Hi, my name is Cassoll and welcome to my channel. I am honestly just here to yap and free my brain from my thoughts. Honestly, I have written an essay and oh my gosh, my hair. Hello. I wrote an essay on the topic of Manic Pixie Dream Girls and really how they relate to modern dating as a neurodivergent baddie, and I'm here to talk. And this is not anything formal. This is really just to be a stream of consciousness of my thoughts on the topic, honestly. So if you are interested in that and if you enjoy that, let's talk about it together. Naturally, this is the most unorganized, thought of thing. This is just me on my bed talking. So yeah. Manic Pixie Dream Girls. What are they? Manic Pixie Dream Girl was a film term coined by the man, the myth, the legend, Nathan Rabin? I don't know, I'm not a professional. But on his website, he says, by definition, Manic Pixie Dream Girls are atypical, anything but ordinary. They are the enemy of normality. They live their lives out loud at a deafening volume. These magical creatures do not care who they offend or who they inspire. The atypical nature of a Manic Pixie Dream Girl's archetype has a neurological component as well. The more I explore my own late diagnosis of autism, ADHD, and bipolar, the more I understand the neurodivergent underpinnings of Manic Pixie Dream Girl myth. Okay, so a Manic Pixie Dream Girl is considered a out-of-the-ordinary woman. It's a trope in film, by the way. But this out-of-the-ordinary woman who doesn't follow social conventions, who saves this man and is pretty much only in existence to serve as a plot device for whatever he is going through. Think Summer in 500 Days of Summer, which is going to be the main example that I use, or even Clementine in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which some of y'all think Clementine isn't a Manic Pixie Dream Girl because she has that whole quote in the movie where she's like, I'm just my own fucked up woman with my own, looking for my own peace of mind, don't assign me yours, or however the quote goes. Feel free to correct me in the comments. But we need to acknowledge the fact that throughout the entirety of this movie, outside of certain points, Clementine mainly only exists within Joel's conscious. Like, that's the whole point of the movie. Therefore, by definition, she is a Manic Pixie Dream Girl because she only exists, again, within most of the movie, within the context of Joel's memories, and by definition only exists to him within how he views her. So, what is the purpose of this? Why is this relevant in modern dating, specifically as a neurodivergent baddie? Because these women, Manic Pixie Dream Girls, are considered neurodivergent coded. Neurodivergent meaning like people who don't think in a normal fashion, think autism, think ADHD, think BPD baddie. Like, you can't tell me Clementine's not a BPD baddie. I know what she is. I see her. But people who stray from conventional ways of thinking and conventional norms. So how does this relate to dating culture? I think it's important to separate this by gender because we have two characters. We have the love interest, the man, and then we have the dream girl herself. So I would like to start by talking about men because I have the most to say, and I think that that's an interesting place to start, so that's where I'm starting. When it comes to these men, it is important to say that they are described as pretty much losers. And the main example that comes to mind, I think, is Scott Pilgrim and Ramona Flowers, where Scott Pilgrim is literally a loser. I believe that's the first thing that's said in the comics. Scott Pilgrim is a loser. He started off dating this 17-year-old girl, and he falls in love with Ramona Flowers at first sight, which we'll get into. But he's a loser. And even Joel, even Joel in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, he's not quite loser like how Scott Pilgrim is, but he is sad without this girl, this dream girl who brings light into him and breathes air. And then we have Tom in 500 Days of Summer, who is socially awkward. That's how they frame these men, socially awkward. They have a hard time with the ladies, and they see this woman and they fixate on her, whether that is who they have an idea of in their head that they're idealizing and romanticizing, or the actual person. It's unclear, and we'll get into that. But they have a vision of who they want to marry. Like, this person is the love of their life, so-called. And that is problematic, because at the end of the day, this trope is rooted in sexism. It just is. We all know it is. And the biggest problem is that these men don't see these dream girls as anything other than a goal, an objective. The idea with Tom and Summer from 500 Days of Summer, oh my gosh, I can't speak. Tom sees Summer as nothing but the love of his life. You think of his favorite attributes when he talks about how he loves her. He loves the birthmark on her neck, how her lips look, how her breasts look, everything that he loved about her, and in turn hates about her when he feels slighted by her. Those are all physical attributes. You never learn much about who Summer is, her goals, her aspirations, outside of what Tom knows. And Tom doesn't really inquire much about her, because at the end of the day, that's not what matters. Her goals are not what matters. The fact that she cares about him and that she's in love with him, that's all that matters. And when we take that into real world dating, I think that is true to reality with a lot of neurodivergent women. You see these men hyper fixate on you because you're different, or because they're just like you. They see you and they want love. They project whatever they want out of you onto you. And then when they do that, they don't see you as a human, they see you as an objective, which is something I just said. But that plays a lot into the gender roles of dating, and this is where we go into a sociological aspect of this, where women, when they're little and they're being brought up to be nurturers, to be understanding, to be able to adapt to other people's needs, whereas men are allowed to go through these phases. We know and we hear boys will be boys all the time, and I think that plays a huge factor into how these men grow up and how they feel they can do anything because they're allowed to just dibble and dabble and dilly and dally and play around. Women aren't necessarily afforded that luxury, where men are allowed to be boys. Women usually have to pick up the mess. They have to adapt to other people. They're treated at different standards because they're raised to be nurturers. But men, I literally read an article and they were like, women have to be willing to sacrifice their needs in order to accommodate to men, and have to be able to understand that men will not do the same, and that women have to be empathetic, and men, when they view relationships, they think more, what will I get from it? How will they benefit me? Like, they think more selfishly in terms of relationships. And I think that's true for reality, where we have all these things. We'll get into it. But I think it's so interesting about how fixated these men are. I think hyperfixation plays a part in both genders when it comes to this trope. And we just talked about how, with the idea of 500 Days of Summer, Tom sees Summer for the first time and he goes, that's the love of my life. And then, as one does when they have a crush, they start hyperfixating on her and like picking apart every single tiny interaction that ultimately means nothing. Like, they're just surface level interactions, but to him that's life or death. And that's so important. And I wonder, going back to the idea of social pinnings where women are supposed to be nurturers and providers, when we, meaning men, fixate on this woman, they expect her to change him in a way and kind of adapt. And by change, I mean like they pin all of their growth, they pin their entire world onto this woman. And that makes me think that there is something deeper there. And I wonder why there is a bigger pin on the growth of men that falls onto the backs of women, if that makes sense. And I think that, and I have no proof for this, but my mind goes to this idea that men kind of infantilize themselves, to where a lot of the time men aren't taught to process their emotions when it comes to things that upset them. They aren't really told no all the time. And I think that has taught them to think that they do not carry the weight of their emotions. They don't have to carry those burdens. They can pin them on someone else. And we don't hold men accountable. Men aren't held accountable. We see this all the time. And I can only speak from the lens of a person of color, specifically black. But an example of this being the whole baby mama drama, kind of, where men are allowed to kind of just not take responsibility for things like children or like deeper things in relationships. Like, they're given the bare minimum. The bar is in hell and all they have to do is leap over it, and they can't even do that. Somehow they're playing limbo with the bitch. But this idea that men don't have to take accountability for anything, really, and women are the ones who typically have to take accountability for things, they kind of infantilize themselves, where, yeah, that's really it. If they don't have responsibility, they're not going to take it. But this is the thing, you're not a child. If you want to grow, you kind of have to put in the work, and that's not always being conveyed to men. Oh, my shirt. Hi. Editor's note, somehow more in focus in the video. Don't know how that happens. But something I forgot to mention is the idea of male entitlement. Also, get into my makeup. But male entitlement plays a part in this too, because, again, if we're using 500 Days of Summer, because that's my movie apparently, as this frame of reference and as an example, Tom is completely entitled throughout the entirety of the movie. And men in general are very entitled creatures. This goes back to the idea of objectification. This all goes hand in hand. The whole premise of this trope is objectification, unfortunately. But let me show my work. Entitlement. At the end of the day, Joel, why am I mixing up my main characters? I'm thinking of two different movies. Tom wants love. He sees Summer at the start of the movie. He's like, boom, you're the one I love. Therefore, I'm entitled to you. When he says, we'll take things slow, he, as I said earlier, is still expecting a relationship at the end of this. He is acting out of entitlement with that. And throughout the entirety of the movie, he's acting entitled to
Summer, even at the big argument scene, which he made some valid points, but he literally said, I get to say too, and I say we're together, god damn it. And it's just like, yeah, you're fighting over someone who clearly doesn't want you. But we can contribute this back to real life. How many times have women been in a position where they don't want to do something, but men act entitled to that, and because they want that, they force that? Not in a sexual way, that sounds rapey. That sounds bad. But they want their way. They've been taught. If you want to take it to a sociological perspective, they've kind of been taught that they're allowed to have their way, going back to like this idea of what romance is and how romance even has been presented, where with men they're told they can have it all and they can be loved regardless, and women have to adjust themselves, they have to be more feminine, they have to do this and the third. Even men, like, there's an argument for that, where they have to present and have like this masculine persona, but at the end of the day someone will be there to love them regardless. These two packages have been presented, but I really just wanted to talk about the idea of male entitlement and how that plays a part, and how it's also important to note that Tom, throughout the entirety of the movie, doesn't know shit about any female in the movie. His sister is in the movie. His sister's in this movie. She's literally picking up the pieces of Tom, and we know absolutely nothing about her other than what's presented. Like, she plays soccer. She's somehow there, despite being like, 9 years old, she's somehow there to pick up his pieces at any time of the night, and that's all we know outside of that. Yeah.
Constantly chasing Summer and constantly expecting a relationship out of her, I think goes back to the idea of the chase in dating, and how women play hard to get, and how you as a man have to chase them, and it's like this whole cat and mouse game where you just have to keep putting in the effort, and eventually she'll succumb to what you want, she'll succumb to your needs. And that's not always the case. When it comes to these women, they say no, and sometimes when they say no, they're just like, no, but they really want it. But like, the dating game and like the idea of the chase is so hard, and this is like a whole tangent where I think that when they say no but they really mean yes, it's like the whole game of the chase. That feels like it really blurs the line of consent to me, where no means no. No means no. It's important to make that known. But when we play the game of the chase, and as a man I have to keep going after you and like begging for the yes and making you mine, then we start to muddy what becomes yes and what is no, and that gets so detrimental to people really quickly because the lines of consent are blurred. But I think that's a tangent for another day. Right now we're talking about the chase and how I have notes. I wrote out the world's shittiest script, or like, what's it called? Oh my gosh, where it's like a layout kind of. I forget the name off the top of my head, but when men, they objectify, they view these women as a goal, inherently making the term of a manic pixie dream girl sexist, because they're automatically dehumanized. And I think it's also important to understand that in the role of a manic pixie dream girl, whether that's Scott Pilgrim, whether that's 500 Days of Summer, or even Eternal Sunshine, these characters, these movies were written by men. And I think that's important, and it's very obvious, because if it was written by a woman, I'm sure she'd have more depth. And I remember somebody was talking about 500 Days of Summer, and they were like, honestly, if this is from Summer's perspective, this would be terrifying. Like, imagine you making it clear you don't want a man, but they keep pursuing you. That's terrifying. Like, it can turn into a stalker situation fairly quickly. Now, obviously, Summer is also at fault, and let's get into that now. Summer can be at fault because she is doing things that convey as romance. She, I will say, has made it abundantly clear she does not want a relationship out of this. And he should allow her to go there. If he's expecting a relationship and she said no, he should be like, okay, I'm gonna go find someone who wants a relationship. But that's just not how the movie works. So she says, no, I don't want this, but we can be like friends with benefits. Like, we can have a little situationship or whatever. And they agree. It turns into a situationship. They're doing dating type things, but without the title. Why would you want a relationship with someone who doesn't believe in love? Although love is like a huge basis, one would say, of a relationship. Beats me. But like, here we are. They're doing romantic things in a relationship without a relationship. Oh my gosh, can I talk? And I can't lie, I've been in that situation where someone has wanted me and I've been in the position where I'm like, no, I don't want this, but we end up doing things that can come off as romance. And this is what brings me to my next point. Remember when I said Manic Pixie Dream Girls are neurodivergent coded? Let's get into that now. Neurodivergent women also have a tendency to hyperfixate. Now, these two hyperfixations look completely different. With the men, they're hyperfixated on this woman, they're romanticizing, they're idealizing them. I think from the woman's perspective, especially someone who's not interested in Tom, like how Summer is, or like interested in like the man, the hyperfixation can stem from just a new experience and like the idea and the fascination of someone new liking them. They can do things, and I'm they. I am they in this situation. I have been they. But they're just tantalized by something new, and so they fall victim to it and they hyperfixate on it. And if you are a neurodivergent person and you've hyperfixated on something, you know you can go from 0 to 100 really quickly. Here's where the problem lies. With the pure intentions that can come from neurodivergence, because we don't follow social conventions and social cues can be hard to read, sometimes the genuine curiosity does come off as romantic intentions, because in a standard neurotypical society, these things are considered flirting, are considered romance in that way. But just getting to know somebody on a deep level, neurotypical people don't really do that often unless they are in love with someone. So when a neurodivergent person does that and they're just like, oh, I like you, I want to get to know you, I want to ask the deep questions, I want to get to know who you are deep down inside. Because I've done that. I want to know. I'm nosy. I'm curious. What can I say? But I want to get to know you deep down on a personal level. Let's ask the question of this. How many people ask men questions that are more than surface level who aren't family members or who aren't in pursuit of something romantic? It doesn't happen a lot. So it's very easy for these pure, let's say pure with quotes, intentions to get misconstrued as romantic intentions, which takes us back to this idea of the chase, where you say no, but you're doing things that imply that you want me romantically. So I'm gonna keep taking that as, if I keep pursuing, if I keep chasing, eventually you will say yes. And that is what really starts to muddy the waters. of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl in real life. Obviously, I feel the need to say this, Manic Pixie Dream Girls do not exist in real life because women do not exist within the context of men. And that is the basis of which Manic Pixie Dream Girls live. But within this idea, Neurospicy Woman talks to regular loser man. She has spark, he wants spark. He wants to take her spark. I feel like that's really it. Men just be wanting the neurodivergent spark of a woman. I can't. But to continue on, this hyperfixation can be misinterpreted as love. And that's where it gets hard. That's really the main aspect of the woman perspective. But these ideas of Manic Pixie Dream Girl being weird, I think that, not weird, but being like objectified is not fun, because usually these people are alternative. They fall out of line with society. Again, they don't follow societal conventions. These people aren't the people who dress normal or listen to the proper thing. I think to describe a Manic Pixie Dream Girl is essentially the antithesis of a pick-me, where pick-me women are like, I love men, I only do men, pick me, choose me, love me, come on, Meredith Grey. Manic Pixie Dream Girls don't necessarily desire to be chosen. They just happen to be chosen because they're different. And with that, there's a sense of glee. Because I can't lie, being neurodivergent is fun. There's so much. It's a roller coaster. It's new. It can open you up to things that you've probably never thought about. And with that, it's addicting. Like, I understand why you want to be attached to me. I'm kind of the shit. Like, I'm cool, I'm deep, I like turtles and Spider-Man. Like, what else could you want from me? But I think that's very interesting, and that is the overarching problem of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl trope that people don't really like to talk about when it comes to neurodivergence. They love to be like, oh, pretty blue hair character, she looks so good, she's so different, I want to be her. And that's the whole problem. Nathan, whichever one you like, he wrote this article that's like sorry for creating the Manic Pixie Dream Girl trope, where he talks about how pop culture has really romanticized the trope and how we've taken it out of hand. And I don't think the Manic Pixie Dream Girl is something you should aspire to be. Like, yes, aesthetics. You can draw inspiration from characters fashion-wise, but you shouldn't want to base your entire personality on someone who doesn't even get to really have their own outside of a man. You shouldn't base your entire personality on someone who's nothing but an objectification and a plot device for someone else's story. You have your own story. You should follow that. And the biggest issue with the Manic Pixie Dream Girl trope is how it shows neurodivergent women and how they're kind of confined to this box, and it's not always the case. And obviously there are outliers. Obviously there are things we can talk about in the nuance of it all, but it gets dangerous, it gets murky, and yeah, I don't know, I kind of lost the plot. But I would love to hear your thoughts on the topic if you're interested, if you view this. I think I said it all. I hope you found interest in this video, and come again soon. I had so much fun making this.